Good afternoon, fellow TSDC classmates. My name is Marcus Lance, and today I will be demonstrating a few concepts and applications relating to my favorite lubricant, Froglube. I must warn you that some of the situations or demonstrations you may bear witness to are not to be attempted without first notifying your mommy and clearing your browser history. I repeat, do not replicate anything you see here without proper regard for safety. Speaking of that, give me one moment to grab my safety glasses while I'm speaking about it. Firstly, I'm going to begin with an experiment that will take the entirety of our discussion to be properly evaluated. Here I have 5 cups of ferric chloride, an extremely caustic and corrosive acid that is used to etch PCB boards for the technology industry, but also to reveal the patterns of Damascus steel for knife makers and blacksmiths alike. I'm going to treat 5 clean samples of non-stainless A2 tool steel with 5 various lubrication methods, and we are going to use the ferric chloride as a substitute for extreme conditions the lubricated part might experience. At the end of our discussion, we will see how each lubricant fared in this particular test. Remember, this experiment is subjective and does not quantifiably cover all necessary aspects of each product's intended purpose. So as I said, we have 5 samples here. We're talking about Froglube. I'm going to explain more to it about it later, but like I said, this experiment is going to take the entirety of this demonstration. So to jump ahead a bit, I'm going to explain how to apply it, but to do this experiment I've got to apply it. So first of all, I'm going to apply the Froglube first because it does actually take the longest to apply. First thing I'm going to need is the heat gun. So I've got a heat gun here. I'm going to heat this part up. Note we are in a controlled environment here. Alright, so we have our part at 113, 104 degrees, dropping pretty quick. The way the manufacturer recommends you use Froglube is to first spray on some of the solvent. It's going to clean any residue, get rid of anything that was on there before that's going to stop the Froglube from adhering and doing what it's supposed to do. You saw the first step there was I actually heated it up. And what that's going to do, it's going to help expand the pores of the metal and actually help the Froglube absorb into those pores and season the same way you would a cast iron pot. So then that's that. We're going to let that one sit there next to the Froglube. We're going to move on now. The next sample we have is going to be 3-in-1 oil. So we're going to take some of the 3-in-1 oil. I'm going to drop it on there. Notice how I was actually able to use my fingers with the Froglube. That's because all Froglube products are 100% non-toxic and bio-based. That means they're safe for me to touch and handle with my bare hands. There's no worry, there's no danger. So there we go. We've got the 3-in-1 oil. This here is break-free CLP. It is actually used in the exact same industry that Froglube normally would be used in, the firearms lubrication industry. So this is what you would use to lubricate the action of your firearm. You do the same thing. We're going to kind of apply it, kind of rub it in there with our gloved hands. And kind of wipe the excess off. We're going to try to give everybody a fair shake. So we're going to put that back down there where the break-free was. The next one we have here is motor oil. So we're going to give this a good shake. You'll notice this is actually SAE 30ND non-detergent motor oil. If your lubrications teacher is any good, he will have taught you about that. If you don't know anything about non-detergent motor oil, then I would say blame your teacher because he should have told you something. Oh, a little bit of a squirt out there. So we're going to do the same thing with the motor oil. Apply it generously, then wipe it off. We're going to move on to our final contestant, which is actually WD-40, something I'm sure many of you are pretty familiar with. So same thing, we're going to apply it pretty liberally and then wipe it off. So that's pretty much what you would do with any of these things if you were going to try to lubricate them or prevent corrosion. And then now that the frog lube has had some time to sit in there, we're going to go ahead and do the same thing and wipe it off, okay? So there we go. Everybody's gotten a fair shake. Now we're going to take each one and drop it into a cup of ferric chloride so that we can come back and be able to see how each one performs. So we're going to take these, I'm going to move these cups out of the way. And we're going to talk a little bit more about frog lube. I'm going to explain to you some of the things that I've mentioned already so far. So the frog lube system components are designed, manufactured, and field tested to meet or exceed the specifications of various U.S. government standards. Additionally, the current mil-spec standards do not rise to the stringent safe toxicity levels that frog lube requires in manufacturing non-toxic firearms care products. All frog lube products are non-toxic and non-carcinogenic, making them all California Proposition 65 exempt. Accordingly, frog lube has been tested and awarded the prestigious USDA BioPreferred label for their system of firearms, lubricants, and solvents. Frog lube has been tested in field conditions above 125 degrees Fahrenheit and below negative 40 degrees Fahrenheit. If you anticipate operating in cold temperatures, you should prepare your firearm by cleaning thoroughly with frog lube degreasing solvents and by removing any excess lube and leaving a dry, slick surface. Since frog lube CLP bonds to the metal, your lube will function without a visible excess coating. Frog lube also recommends the use of frog lube extreme CLP if you expect to operate in the cold for an extended length of time. Frog lube is a heavy specific gravity, food grade mixture that seeps deep into the micro spaces of the metal and acts as if to season the surface of the bore. Any friction points in all areas are treated with the lube. Once treated, fouling particles resist bonding to metal surfaces. Instead, they easily wipe away or brush off the surface. This also applies to other loose fouling particles such as dirt, dust, and sand. Frog lube has replaced petroleum in the firearm operating continuum. Experimenting with non-petroleum, bio-based mixtures, frog lube discovered the following shocking results during firearm testing. No burning, cleans carbon, metals, fouling, lube, copper, and lead, no sticky or baked on residues, no harmful effects on any parts or accessories, 40% reduction of friction, no oxidization or corrosion, a melting point of 76 degrees Fahrenheit, specific gravity of 0.9, it is insoluble in water and is not reactive with water. The flash point is over 700 degrees, which is over 400 degrees higher than any comparable oil, with petroleum oils averaging at 300 degree flash points. Additionally, frog lube solvent has no flash point and is not flammable. Extinguishing media, dry chemical, carbon dioxide, foam. Cool containers exposed to flame with water to limit the spread of oil. Treat as an oil or edible fat fire. Use air supplied equipment for fighting interior fires. Do not use water to extinguish. Frog lube does not film, nor is it a coating. Instead, it is a treatment that is absorbed throughout the firearm. It is water insoluble and will repel water and resist corrosion. Available in 1.5 ounce Neosporin type tubes to 1 gallon tubs of the solvent, degreaser, and lubricant paste, ranging from $9.99 for the 1 ounce spray up to $210 for the gallon of solvent. So now we're going to do a demonstration. I'm going to show you quickly how you would use frog lube CLP to clean a firearm. So as usual, anytime you're going to do anything with the firearm, first thing we're going to do is make sure it's safe. We're going to remove the magazine. I'm going to double check the action is clear. I'm going to go ahead and disassemble this thing. And according to the instructions, as they said, the first thing you want to do, because we know this is safe, it's not going to damage any part of the firearm anywhere. You want to spray this anywhere that might need it. This gun actually hasn't been cleaned in a while, so it isn't going to hurt anything. Go ahead and take our bore brush and get in there, kind of scrub any of that nasty stuff out of there. Go ahead and take our snake. I didn't put a cloth in the bore brush because I like to use the snake. So what the solvent is doing now is it's cleaning all that debris. That's really all it's going to take. Cleaning all that debris and nastiness and preparing the metal for the actual CLP component. So this is a solvent, so it does flash off pretty quick, which means it doesn't stay wet on the surface of the material for an extremely long amount of time. Grab a microfiber cloth here. It'll help kind of wiping some of this material off. It's not going to be too much residue or nastiness down inside there. Same thing with this. Just kind of give it a liberal wipe down. Anywhere you got the spray, you want to give it a wipe. I don't know if you can tell, but it's definitely a bit cleaner than it was before. Quite a bit cleaner. So then now I'm going to go ahead and take, this is actually Froglube in this drop right here, so take some of that Froglube. It's totally safe for the bore. Any points that are going to get any type of movement down here in the slide. And then just like any lubricant, the worst thing you can do is over lubricate. So once we get everything nice and good, the first thing we want to do is remove a little bit of that lubricant, because we know that, as stated, Froglube does work with a completely dry film. So that's all that's going to take. I'm going to go ahead and reassemble this real quick. So I don't know if you can tell from when I took it apart to now by how much easier, but we're good to go. So that's that part of the demonstration. You can see how you would actually use it. So now we're going to go on to another part of the demonstration, something that I think is pretty interesting, pretty cool. Got these containers here. We're going to take each of our different components. So we've got 3-in-1 oil. Squirt a little bit of that down in there. Got our Froglube solvent. Squirt some of that in there. Keep these in order so I don't get them mixed up. Got our break-free CLP. We're going to squirt some of that in there. Take a little bit of that non-detergent motor oil. Put some of that in there. We're going to take some of that WD-40. Put some of that in there. And then lastly, we're going to take some of our Froglube. Put that in there. So I tried to get equal liquid samples of each different thing. I'm going to set this up and be as safe as possible. Okay, we might not be able to get a wall, but there we go. That works. So first of all, our first one was the 3-in-1 oil. I'm going to put my safety glasses on, and like I said, I do not recommend any of you ever try any of this without first calling your mommy. So 3-in-1 oil, as you can see, is flammable. Go ahead and take care of that, get that out of the way, neutralize that. Next up, we had our Froglube solvent, which, as I mentioned, should not be flammable. You can see, if anything, that's flashing off pretty quick, it's evaporating, it's going away. Same story, we're going to get that out of the way. Next up, we have our break-free CLP. Oh, wow. I'm not going to guess what temperature that was, but that was pretty quick. Next up, this was our motor oil. It's smoking. Oh, I saw a flame. I don't want to go too far. Might have to concentrate it a little bit more to get a good flame going, but there we go. That's enough for me. So that motor oil didn't take long at all. Next up was our WD-40. And that didn't take long at all, possibly because it's aerosol based. And then lastly, we have our Froglube. So that did burn pretty quick. There's a reason why it burned pretty quick. It's because essentially, as far as we know, it's coconut oil. The majority of Froglube is composed of coconut oil with other additives. We're not sure exactly what, but that's what makes it so food safe and okay to work with. So now we're going to switch back and we're going to look at our samples from earlier. We're going to see how they all fared. And then to do a control, I'm going to go ahead and take a piece of bare steel. It hasn't been oiled. We're going to show you what this chemical would normally do to something like this without any kind of lubricant, just as a control, just so you guys can understand what would normally happen. So this is a razor blade, clean razor blade. I'm going to go ahead and just drop that in there. So first of all, we're going to look at our 3-in-1 oil. It's not too apparent, but you can actually see a bit of a line right there where the acid may have eaten in a bit. I'm going to go ahead and move to, this is our break-free CLP. So same thing, I'm not sure if you can see it, but there's a line there where the acid kind of ate in a little bit. Next up, this one is our WD-40, and same story. I try to get it to focus. There's a bit of a line where the acid started to eat in. Might be kind of hard to see this, guys. I'm sorry. I know it's kind of a lot of work up for nothing, but we got our motor oil, which actually didn't seem to do too bad. It's pretty viscous, pretty thick. It seemed like it might have stayed on there pretty well, even though we wiped it off. And lastly, we have our Froglube, which I don't know if you can tell, but that is pretty much spotless. It's pretty much perfect. Looks just like it did when you put it in there. And I'll go ahead and get our control out of there just so you guys can see what happens to steel when you put it in something like that. So you can kind of see those dark spots, those nasty, ugly gray areas. That's the acid starting to corrode. And you saw how quick I cleaned it off. I'm sure there's still some oil still left on there. So kind of gives you an idea of what something unlubricated will do in an environment like that. I want to thank you guys for watching, and I look forward to hearing the rest of your demonstrations.